Hello everybody, Captain Baker here today, and today what we're going to do is we're going to review the AGA T2, which I bought at Vape Bash over the weekend from OKC Vapes. I'm going to give you a little bit of points on how I feel about it and the design of it, and we're also going to do a wick and coil build for it. So, first things first, what I do want to say is that it pulls off just like most other Genesis do, but it has two O-rings that hold the top cap in place. Now, the top cap has a screw in it, which you can probably barely see. It's really, really small. It's like a tighter draw. Compared to my Zen, it's a lot tighter draw. I know a lot of people drill this out. I don't think I'm going to do that. I'm in the habit from vaping my Zen that I hit it nice and slow, so it really doesn't seem too tight to me. Now, the top cap here, you can see that there's two screws, one here and one here, and one of them you'll use as your ground, which would be the one that has the hole next to it, because that's where your wick is going to go, so you use this screw as a ground. This other screw here, we're going to go ahead and remove that. That's going to be where you fill your fluid, and it's got three nuts on the top here, which can make it kind of a pain, because you gotta kind of loosen the top nut, and then that's where you're going to capture your wire at. I just think it's kind of a pain because you got the other two nuts that can move along with it. There's really no way to secure it. It's not like a post like you would normally see in like a Genesis or other Genesis that are out there. The other thing that I don't like about this is the fact that you actually have to take this entire thing apart to be able to take the tube out of there, to be able to clean it out. A lot of people take a syringe, like this one, and what they'll do is they'll suck the fluid out that's already in there, and then they'll fill and suck out water numerous times, and they'll clean it, and then they'll put fresh water in there, and they'll keep doing that until it's completely cleaned out, and then they'll just kind of let it dry overnight. Now, when I bought this, it came with the polycarbonate tube installed, but I went ahead and got the glass tube to go with it, the quartz tank, and I'm not going to put that in yet. I don't really vape anything that eats plastic, like cinnamon and banana and other flavors known to eat polycarbonate tanks. But so what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take out the other screw that has the fill hole for the fluid. You can use any Phillips head screwdriver that you want. I just, I always carry my Leatherman on me, so really not too big of a deal. But you definitely want to use a screwdriver because there's not really a lot of room there to be able to grip it with your fingers. And there it goes. Now, I usually will not put this back in. It's a Genesis, so you've always got to keep it standing up anyway because it'll leak through the wick. So I never saw a point in putting that screw back in, but I will put it off to the side just to be able to have it. Now I want to make sure that the positive nut's a little loose. I'm going to kind of crack the ground screw open a little bit. I do recommend something like this, especially if you want to put it on like a ProVary, like I have here. This is a ProVary, which actually has this clip on it. I also got this at OKC Vapes. This thing's actually pretty cool. It won't let go of your device. It takes a lot of force to take it apart. And it's got the little hook on it, so you can clip it to your belt. You can clip it to a lanyard that goes around your neck. This thing was real handy while I was at Vape Bash. That way I didn't have to put my PV in my pocket or carry it around in my hand while doing everything that I was doing. We'll get to that here in a little bit. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to build this wick, and then I'm going to build a coil, but I'm going to build a coil to be able to use it on a regulated device. I'm going to build it to be able to use it on my ProVary. So, what I'm going to do is, move this, see what I'm doing. Okay, what you'll do is get yourself a piece of stainless steel mesh. grab it with a pair of pliers in the center right here. Which, if anybody has seen, my Genesis video, you've already seen me do this before. But just in case you haven't, go ahead and I'll walk you through this. And what you're going to do is you're just going to oxidize the mesh. You can see it changing colors. And you just want to make sure you oxidize it evenly and make sure that you do it thoroughly. And again, the point for this is so that when you put it in a device, it doesn't cause a short, so it doesn't misfire on you. You just want to make sure it's nice and even, and it's oxidizing really well. I'll spend about 30 seconds per side on this, making sure that I get it done fairly well, fairly even. Actually cut this one pretty good. There's not too many strands on it. Just a little bit right there. Strands don't bother me too much. Some people do what they can to try to get rid of them. That's mainly if you're putting your wick in to go to the bottom of the device. You don't want those strands to touch the bottom. Because if they do, they will short out. You'll find out today that I don't like to put my wick really that far into the device, which I will show you when I get to that point. That's pretty good. I could pull that up and go to grab it and move it over. Now right here you can see the difference right there. It's where the pliers were at. I'm going to go ahead and I want to oxidize that too, just so I can make sure that uniform. Make sure everything is oxidized properly. Now the AGA T2, it does not have the little insert where your wick would go, so it is a little bit of a bigger hole compared to my Genesis. So my wick is actually going to be a little bit bigger round than the one I built on my other video. But it's still the exact same purpose you're trying to accomplish. Go ahead and put this down. Make sure it's cool off if you want to add it. Now what you're going to do is, a lot of people like to fold over this little edge right here before they start to roll it. They'll make a little crease. I don't personally do that. All I do is just kind of get it started, get it rolled, make sure that it's round. I don't know how well you can see through that, but you want to be able to see through it. And what you're going to do is you're just going to start rolling it nice and light at first. And then once it starts to get smaller, you go ahead, add a little bit more pressure. Since this wick's actually going to be bigger, better check it before I get too far ahead of myself. And you're always rolling from the inside out, just so you can keep it nice and uniform and get it tight. Keep the roll exactly where you need it to be. It's almost there, starting to go in. It's just a little too tight. Just a little too much. There it is. Nice and perfect. And let it slide in. Just don't want it to be too tight, too loose. I like to get it to a point where it's snug that I can slide it back and forth, but if I spin it, it's real nice and easy. Now you always want to spin it in the way that you rolled it. And then now what we're going to do is take this, get myself a piece of wire. I kind of have laying around here. Take a look at that dropping it. Stick around inside there to be able to hold it. Go ahead, take that. I don't know if you can see that. I just got it sitting on a wire. I'll go ahead and relight my torch. Now again, I'm not really doing this for oxidation purposes. Ooh, look at that. I'm just kind of doing it so that the wick will maintain its roll. Plus it will get any kind of spots that you did miss a little bit. Now a lot of people quench their wicks. I don't do that. I've never seen that it helps. A lot of other people, what they'll do is once they've done this, they'll drip liquid onto it, then they'll burn the liquid off. They say that it helps with wicking. I disagree. I don't think that it does. Sorry about that, my nose itches. You know, let this thing cool off so you can grab it with your fingers. Yeah, and I shouldn't need to have to tell you this, but if you're using a torch, it is very hot. You want to be very, very careful. Now, what you're going to do is go ahead, put that into a wick hole. Like so. And I don't know how well you can see that, but you know, I put my wick down in there just enough to be able to see it. About where it sits right now, it's probably maybe a quarter of an inch. You can go a little bit farther than that. I do that because you have to tilt with the Genesis atomizer. So if anybody's ever messed around with Vivi Novas or anything's got a silica wick, if you cut the wick shorter, it just wicks faster. So I use the same thought on this. Instead of running the wick all the way to the bottom, I just go ahead and run the wick right there. And then when I tilt, it'll just wick faster for me. Now, since I am putting this on a regulated device, I am going to use some 32 gauge Cantal wire, just so I can get a little bit of a higher resistance. I'm a fan of doing 3 wraps, so because of that, that's the other reason I'll use 32, because I can use 3 wraps. And see, what you're going to do is, you're going to make a little hook with the wire, just like that. And then you want the short end to go away from the wick. And you wrap that around the ground screw. There. And I'll pin both ends down with my thumb, just like that, right there. And then I'll take my Leatherman, it has my screwdriver on it, and I will go ahead and I will tighten down the ground screw. Now what I'm going to do is move the wire. It's got the little pigtail on it. And then I'm going to wrap this around the wick, but I'm going to go around the post also, kind of get the wrap started on it, so I can start the curve. And now, the other thing with this, compared to like my Genesis, the post really isn't that tall. So you got to kind of be a little wary of how high you make the coil. Alright, there's 3 wraps. I'm going to go ahead, I'll wrap it around the post, and then I'll pin it with my finger. And then what I'm going to do is you can take pretty much anything you want. I mean, I'm going to take the syringe here, but you could use a flathead, you know, you could use a knife, something. What you're doing is you're just trying to make the coils look uniform on here, kind of evenly spaced. Yeah, like so. Now you go ahead and this is the part that I really don't like about the AGA T, is that I've got to get down in here and I've got to try to turn this knot. I know it's hard for you to see it, but it's a bunch of small parts. Once I get it tight, I'll go ahead and I'll take a pair of pliers and I'll grab it and I will tighten it down. You know, I actually did something that I don't recommend. Now, see what I did here is when I wrapped this around the post, I wrapped it in a way that the nut would actually be turned towards the loosening side. You always want to wrap it in the way of tightening so that it will pull the wick a little bit towards the post. I don't know how well you can see that, but wrap it around right there, bringing it down nice and tight, and I'm going to pin it with my fingers, and then I'm going to tighten this little nut right here. Yeah, really not a lot of space to play with. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to tighten that down with a pair of pliers, just because you really can't get it tight enough with your fingers. And I actually tightened it a little too much. It actually spun my wick, you can see that. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to loosen it a little bit. I'm going to reset that. Turn my wick back a little bit. And then I got it snug with my fingers. I'm just going to give it a little bit of a turn. A little bit without affecting my wick. You can see that. It's going to be my initial little wrap right there. Now, when you're putting on a regulated device, you need to be aware of what type of regulation your device has. I'm going to go ahead and, if you can see that, I'm going to cut some excess. Just in case I need to do another wrap around, I've got enough wire to be able to do it. Now what I'm going to do is I'll lift these wires up so they're not touching. I'm going to grab my trusted Provary here. Stick this thing on. And now I'm going to show you just how tight this thing is. Because I'm going to take it off so you can see the resistance that I'm trying to reach. Oh, okay. See, that thing is just awesome. And now, let's see here. Let's see what this says. Atomizer ohms. And I received an error. So I probably have to do another wrap. I would imagine what I'll do. So what we'll do is, since I left myself that little bit of space, I'll go ahead and I'll just break this free. Oh, no, I guess it did worse than that. It actually popped. Popped my coil. So I have to go ahead and I have to rewrap this. Now the other thing that I need to be aware of, which I probably wasn't, is to bring your power down. No, it's probably too high. We'll go to about 3.3 volts. I don't know how well you can see that. But that's where I'm going to set that at. Something nice and low. And I'm going to go ahead and make my little hook again, just like so. And remember, the pigtail always goes away from the wick. Always, always, always does. And then I'll hold that tight with my fingers. Tighten it back down. See, this kind of worked out. Now you're going to get to hear me go through this all over again. And then on this one, compared to most of them, you actually have to rock counterclockwise. Really not a big deal, but you do. And then, like I said, I'll use the post to start the curve, kind of training the wire to start being able to make the loops. And then, let's see, go ahead and push these down a little bit. I've already got 3 wraps on there, but I want to do one more. Just in case. Just like that. Now I've got 4 wraps on there. Popped my coil because I was at too high of a voltage. I wasn't really looking at that like I should have been. I already had it preset up for the cardo tank that I had sitting on top of it. Turn this wire right here. Get it snug with my finger. Go ahead, I'll turn that down. And then again, I'm going to cut some excess, you know, probably an inch, a little over an inch and a half maybe. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to play with my coil to make them uniform before I fire it. Remember, you always want your wick to be close to your center post, but not touching it. If it touches it, it'll short out, especially if when you're oxidizing your wick, if you miss anything and it will conduct electricity, it will automatically short out. Alright. That looks pretty uniform. See how well you can see that? Alright, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to check the resistance. Pop it in. Interesting. Alright, so that actually took a little bit more work to try to get that straightened out. Now that I actually have 4 wraps on this, my ProVary is actually reading at a much ohms. It's actually reading 2.6, 2.7. To me, that's way too high. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open this up. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take a wrap off. Way too hot. You don't want a Genesis atomizer resistance to be that high. So, go ahead, turn this down a little bit. Alright, like that. Go ahead and move this out of the way. And, see what it comes up with now. 1.3. Just going to be a little bit low, but that probably has a lot to do with the fact that I just used coils. So, go ahead and lift them up. See if I can't get them stabilized and uniform. 17.8 message. This is why a lot of people don't like to put Genesis atomizers on a regulated mod, because then you gotta deal with the errors and everything else that comes along with them. Let's see what we got here. There we go. See how well you can see that. Lighten up my minimize the resistance, because it actually should have went up a little bit. No, 1.4. It's kind of hard to get you guys to see it when I'm trying to look at it too myself. Let's see what it says. 1.4 ohms. Alright, so now what I'm going to do, that'll work for me. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to push these wires straight up. Right? And I'm going to go ahead and grab my scissors that are somewhere in here. There they are. Nothing beats the Weatherman. Alright, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to point this straight up, and I'm going to cut it as close to the ground screw as possible. Point this straight up, and I'm going to cut it as close to the positive as possible. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take my mesh here, and I'm going to cut it even with the top screw. Then I'm going to go ahead and apply pressure to both sides so I can get that opening that I was trying to keep when I was rolling it. Let's see if it still lights up again. Which it does. It's lighting up pretty good. Got a little bit of a hot spot there. Just playing with it. Not a big deal. There we go. Nice and easy. Alright. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get myself some juice. Pull it nicely. A couple drips on there. Go ahead and see if it bakes pretty well or if I need to turn it up a little bit. Now the thing that you will know is that from having a regulated mod to having, you know, mechanical mod, you're going to have some huge differences as far as vape goes, because you're just not going to be able to have the power that you want to have. See that one right there? I'm trying to see how much power I can actually get on this thing. .7 wouldn't work. Okay, 3.5, well, this is very, very low. I don't like having my flavor that low. There we go. That's a better breaker. Alright. Go ahead. Take the AGA T2. You're going to fill it up. Drop some liquid on there. Get the wick set up. Put that back in the bottle. Alright. Now when you put the top cap on, it's the same thing as any other Genesis, but for you guys that don't know, you're going to take the air hole, and you're going to make it completely even with the wick, and you put it on there. That's going to be for the most vapor production. If you turn it away from the hole, either way you want to put it, then it'll increase throat hit, but you're going to lose vapor. So let's go ahead and have the vape. Alright, so it's actually not too bad. producing some pretty good vapor production. It's not as good as a mechanical mod, but for you guys that like to have the safety features of an actual regulated device, I recommend the AGA T. It's not too bad. Um, really want to go that route. There are some other atomizers that actually are a little bit easier to build than this. Just might want to look into. I know Smoke Tech has the RSST that just came out not too long ago, and I've heard some pretty good things about it. I haven't got the chance to try one. I did get to see it at Vape Bash, but I didn't get the chance to pick one up. So, go ahead and elevate. Yeah, it's not too bad. Well, if you got any questions, comments, or concerns, you can find me on Facebook. You can follow me on Twitter. I will leave the email addresses at the end of this video. Happy vaping.